Hi friends, welcome to the Motleyverse BookTube. My name is Nonya and it is a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. In this episode, I'm going to share with you a book that I am currently reading or have recently read. I'm going to share a brief synopsis of the book, what I learned or what I liked about the book. If I have any constructive criticism, I will share it. And it is my hope that at the end of this, you are inspired to either pick up this book or any other book of your interest, any book that piques your interest. And when you do, please share with me. I would like to know what you're reading and what you think about what you're reading. So without further ado, que se abre el telón. Let us start the show. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about No Longer at Ease. That is the book of our this episode. It's No Longer at Ease by Chinua Achebe. So, No Longer at Ease is the third installation in Chinua Achebe's African trilogy. It's chronologically the third one, but when I did my research, I think he published this second. So you have Things Fall Apart, No Longer at Ease, and Arrow of God. But chronologically, in terms of time that the books were set, No Longer at Ease happened before Arrow of God. But we digress. So, what's going on in No Longer at Ease? A brief synopsis. It follows Obi Okonkwo, who is the grandson of Okonkwo. If you have read Things Fall Apart, you remember Okonkwo, who committed suicide at the end of Things Fall Apart. Also, he had disowned his first son. I can't remember his Igbo name now, but his Christian name became Isaac. Obi Okonkwo is Isaac's son. And in No Longer at Ease, he had just returned from his studies in England, where he studied a bachelor's in English, much to the chagrin of his village members who sent him abroad to study law. It was their hope that when he finished studying that he could come back and at least advise them on legal matters, if not represent them. But Obi is much like his grandfather. He dances to the tune of his own drums, a bit hard-headed, hard to reason with sometimes when his emotions are aroused. And so he got the scholarship, went over to England and decided that he wanted to study English instead. So this book is following what happens to him when he returns. It's set in mostly Lagos in the 1950s. Some of it happens in Omofia, his village, but most of it is happening in Lagos. Forgive me if I look down sometimes. I'm trying to make sure I don't forget anything in my notes. And so what we have is a man trying to reconcile his past, his tradition with the future, with the things that he has learned from his perspective going outside of the country, even going outside of Umofia. So he's trying to find a way to reconcile those two and marry those two views. And I see him, as I read the book, I couldn't help but think that he was a metaphor for Nigeria itself, because this is happening in the 1950s. And this was, independence was looming near. Nigeria gained its independence from colonial rule in 1960. So I saw Obi also as Nigeria itself, trying to decide what will become of the future. Like, how would it reconcile what it has learned, its interaction with the white man, what it remembers of its past, and then going forward, how things were going to be. I like the lighting on this. I just had to mention that. So that's what the book is about. What I liked about the story, I love the story. I always like, Chinua is a fantastic writer. He always pulls you in with interesting stories, interesting storylines, and it keeps you engaged and interested in seeing the book to the finish. So it's an interesting read. I love that about the book. The story moved. In all the trilogies, I'm going to talk about the other ones. I've kind of started talking about the other one, Arrow of God, but I'm going to revisit it. But in all the trilogies, one constant theme is that the main character, the protagonist, who is usually a male, an Igbo man, always meets a tragic end. And you find yourself still rooting for them, even though I know that things are probably not going to end well for them. But I still hope and wish that they will somehow figure it out and make it work. He also always positions that main character to a friend who's a little bit more, whose temperament is a little bit more even, and who usually fares better than the protagonist. I find that that person is a little bit more acquiescent to the demands and the demands that are coming from all angles, both their interaction with the white man and also what their culture or what tradition or what the Igbo tradition requires of our protagonist. In this case, it was Obi Okonkwo. In Hour of God, I mean, not in Hour of God, in Things Fall Apart, it was Okonkwo. There's always somebody. In Things Fall Apart, it was Obi Erika. In this one, it was his friend Joseph. And they usually, things go better for them, but they're a lot more even keel. And it's sad, you know, it's a reminder that in a way, I feel like Chinua is telling us that in the encounter between the black man and the white man, the black man got incredibly the shorter end of the stick. And the dividends, or the opposite of dividends, whatever that is, the loss that came from that interaction keeps paying over and over through generations and generations to come, you know. Here we have Obi, the grandson of Okonkwo, and he meets his own tragic end. Now, this is not a spoiler. The book starts off with the end. When Obi comes back, he is adamant that he will not fall into the pitfalls of accepting bribery for just in his position in the government. He is adamant that he's going to walk the straight and narrow, that he's not going to be enticed to do that which he shouldn't do. And he starts off like that. He starts off very, very adamant. In fact, once upon a time, the bribe that he actually got caught for and he was eventually sentenced for, a young lady was trying to get a scholarship. He worked for a scholarship review board, you know, so he was in charge of something to do with that. I guess he was overseeing the names that would be discussed for whether they should get a scholarship. And this young lady, her brother came to Obi and said, can you make sure that her name is included in the people that are going to be discussed? Not even that you should give her the scholarship, but just make sure that she is discussed. And Obi said very adamantly, no. Practically threw him out of his office. Later on that day, the girl herself showed up to his to his house, and we're left to infer that she was there, you know, to do whatever she needed to do, including offer her body if she had to. And Obi, who was, you know, he wasn't as strong and staunch as he was with her brother, but he eventually, you know, he didn't accept the bribe. So I'm saying all that to say that in the beginning he was very, very focused on what he felt he needed to do. But ultimately, because of the pressure of the culture, the pressure that he put on himself, I'm not going to blame it completely on the culture. I think also he engineered a lot of it. Just like all the men of these trilogies, they are hot-headed, they don't want to hear, they don't want to reason, they don't want to kind of be strategic and follow the strategy all the way to the end, and it ultimately brings their demise. And so he was he brought on some of it himself. So it's not a spoiler. The way that Chinua writes this book, he starts off with the court scenario where Obi is in court and they're reading his you know, he was about to be sentenced. So I didn't spoil it for you. One of the things that so I'm talking to you about the things that I liked about the book, or the things that kind of stood out to me. There were a couple of things that pressured him into like feeling like he had to accept bribe. Some of it is like he made poor financial decisions. You know, he just made poor financial decisions, which I still see a lot of people doing these days in our age, in the present time, where people feel like because of the status I have, or because of who I am, or because of the degree that I have, he felt like because he just came back from England, he should roll a certain way. He should have a car. And so with his first paycheck, and it's not just a paycheck, they give you an advance. He went and bought a car. He did all this stuff. Spent a lot of money on his girlfriend at the time. And and didn't plan adequately for the future because he owed money to the scholarship, his village people who sent him abroad. It was not a pure scholarship. He still owed them. It was a student loan. He had to pay them. And his pride got in the way when they told him, they started talking to him like, like one of their own, but a brother. They were cautioning him about some of the decisions that he was making, and he didn't like that. So he shunned them, and his pride got in the way. So he owed them money. He owed all these bills for his, the car and the lifestyle that he had brought on himself. And then his mother at home, his parents at home were not doing well. And so eventually the pressure was too much on him. And then his girlfriend, he borrowed money from his girlfriend, that he lost that money. And all that just led to too much pressure, and he felt like he had to accept. He felt like he had to start accepting bribe, and it was a slippery slope. He took one, took two, and before he knew it, he just started accepting bribe. It was the thing that he did. His girlfriend was an Osu, and his mom didn't want him to marry. His parents didn't want him to marry her, and he was adamant that he will marry her. He felt like he could convince them to allow him to marry her because in his mind they were Christians. And an Osu, if you're not familiar, an Osu is someone, correct me if I'm wrong, my Igbo brethren, but an Osu is someone who has pledged to be a slave to a deity. And so every descendant of that slave is an Osu. So whoever you marry is essentially, it's like how, I'm not gonna go there, but whoever you marry becomes an Osu. The children are Osu. So people don't like you to marry Osus, even though most people in Nigeria right now are Christians, or at least in the southeast Nigeria are Christians, and we don't, buy into these things. You find that even today, if you say that you're about to go get married, there's a lot of investigation that the families do. And one of the things that they try to find out is if the person that if the person you're engaged to is an Osu. Because if that person is an Osu, that means your children are going to be an Osu, and nobody wants that for you. So it's one of the remaining vestiges of our past, of our cultural past. He felt like he could get his parents to see reason because they were Christians. But even till today, that Christians today don't want their children to marry Osus. So you can imagine in the 50s, it was an uphill task for him, So he was battling with all the things, and I feel like he wasn't doing it with the most emotional intelligence, which is one thing that I think that the characters in Chinua's book, the men, lack a lot of emotional intelligence. And I wonder if that's something that is prevalent in our society. Is that something that we have to do some introspection about, the way that we are raising our men and our women? Are we raising men who are void of emotional intelligence, so that when they face stressors in life, they come out on the losing end? So those are the things that I picked up from the book. Again, I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to actually go on and read it yourself. What I did not like about the book, I did not like that. I didn't like that it started with the end. I get it was an artistic style, and who am I to question what Chinua is doing, But we have to balance this book review, right? We have to say some good and some negatives. I don't like that it started with the end. I felt it a little bit disorienting when I was trying to follow the story, because sometimes, because it starts from the end and it's kind of telling you going backwards, and it jumps around a little bit. So sometimes I have to go back and read certain parts of the book to kind of remember characters and who they were and their relationship with this person and that person, and then come back and continue where I was reading. I felt like he could have just written it from beginning to end. You know, I don't think it would have taken anything out of the book, and I don't know that. Perhaps I don't know. I'm none the wiser, but I don't feel like it would have taken away anything from the book. I don't feel like this order made the book any more interesting or any more intriguing. Maybe a little bit more intriguing. Maybe it's a little bit more artistic, you know. But I think for following the story, it would have been better if it was chronologically from beginning to end. One thing, this is not about the book, but there's something that struck me in the book that I wanted to talk about, and it is the loss of communal living that we have experienced as a culture as far back as, you know, even before the 50s. So when Obi's mom is dying, Obi went to visit her from Lagos. At this point, it was days journey, like a 2 days journey to get to the village. And when he got there, Obi's mom had 8 or 5 children. I don't know, correct me. But I think it was 8 children. But when she was dying, she had some kind of stomach issues. I think she may have had stomach cancer and it wasn't diagnosed or something. There was something wrong with her stomach. But when she was dying, she only had her last born, who could barely take care of herself, there to help her. And Obi couldn't help but wonder or think about how this woman who had all these children, now that she really, really needs them, they're out there, you know, pursuing greener pastures, trying to make it for themselves. And here she was. He likened it to somebody who lived by a lake, taking a bath with spit. You know, so much resources in terms of children, human resources, and you are operating like somebody who is lacking. And he commented on that, and it reminds me, it just made me think about how that's generally the case. You know, we lost with the with the arrival of colonialism, with the white man. One of the things that we lost is a sense of communal living. We still have it, much more than the West, but you know, not as much as it was during Okonkwo's time. And I couldn't help but think how, you know, like, I don't mind. I myself like to dance to the beat of my own drums, for the most part. You know, I like the independence of doing my own thing. And I think in the middle stages of our life, we don't realize how important that communal kind of coexisting is, because you have strength, you have vigor, you could do whatever you want. You know, you're so consumed with trying to make something out of your life, that you don't miss the lack of community that you might be experiencing, especially for those of us that are far, 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 far from our ancestral land. But I think in the early stages of life and then the later stages of life is when you notice how important that is. In the early stages, my children here, we're far from our own community. And I mean community as in uncles, aunts, cousins. You know, we don't live together like people used to live back then. So they're growing up a little bit isolated from that. And I feel for them, you know. I wish I could make that happen for them, where they could be closer to family. And then later on in your life is another time where you miss it, where you are aging, but you're aging with your community. You have your friends around you who are in the same age bracket. You have your family around you in the same bracket, and people that are younger to tend to you guys and take care of you, you know. And here we don't have it anymore. People just kind of, when you're old, it's a very, very lonely existence. I don't know that it was the case back then, you know. So that, I thought about that, you know. I recently, not recently, but I lost my dad, and I remember thinking to myself how, I don't know, I felt for him. I wish that he was more around his friends, his brothers, you know. Yes, he was closer to medicine that could make a difference for him, but there was other types of medicine too. It's not all just conventional Western medicine. There's other kinds of medication, and I felt like I felt like that would have made a big difference for the quality of his life. So anyways, to wrap it up, why should you pick up this book? Well, if you're Nigerian, I think it's a fantastic book for every Nigerian to read, especially if you're from the Southeast Nigeria. It's good for you to kind of learn how things were. It's a bit of a history story. If you are a fan of literature, it's one of the must-haves or must-read. If you're a Nigerian, I think it's even more reason to read it because it's kind of an exercise in history. He interlaces the story with some vignettes of the past, so you get to see how things were in the past. If you're not Nigerian, I think it's still important for you to. These are the reasons why I think you should read No Longer at Ease by Chinua Achebe. I might redo this, but this is my book review for right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find me at the Motleyverse on Instagram or NoNoOK4, NONOOK4 on Instagram, and I hope you come back and watch my other book reviews.